This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech. Something is going on in the kitchen today, and our guest is baking something full of the best ingredients.
Rize Up is a bakery created to help with the healing process after the death of George Floyd at the hands of police.
And its founder, Azikiwee Anderson, joins us today. Azikiwee, and I hope I can call you Z for the rest of our podcast. Welcome to Believe in People.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Listen, I guess the first question I want to ask you is there something that happens when you are baking that, calms or soothes or opens up, or what does it do? And you're talking to a guy that just bought a fresh, hot loaf of bread, hot out of the oven,
Nice.
half an hour ago. So tell me, what is it about baking and the soul?
Well, for me, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it's very Zen-like. The act, the stewardship around maintaining a starter, watching your fermentation. It's like there are all these microorganisms. You're basically kind of, in a weird way, in tune with it. And when you're really at the high level, you're in tune and you're kind of shepherding it through this process. And it's very gratifying. I mean, you work with your hands. It slows things down for me and gives my life a certain amount of purpose and stability. And I don't know, I didn't know I was going to love it. I actually always say that now that I feel bamboozled, I'm like, how come no one told me that this was an option? Like, this is amazing, So, yeah, I feel like it's kind of communing, right? Like, when you get in the ocean, there's so many other things that are alive around you. It can or even if you get near the ocean, it just feels, it calms your soul. That's what baking does for me.
And Z, okay, so where did this epiphany, or maybe not even, so you just kind of fell into it. How did you know then that did become an option for you? Like, what's the story behind that?
So I was an aspiring chef, and it was the beginning of the pandemic. I used to be a private chef. I would do 7-course meals with wine pairing from anywhere between 12 to 24 people. And at the beginning of the pandemic, they're like, okay, I live in San Francisco. Everyone's, we're going to stay inside. We're going to be cognizant. We're going to be there for each other. We're not going to expose each other. And next thing you know, that whole business and the whole livelihood of that just disappeared. There was nothing to do. So I made sure that my kids were on all their Zoom classes. I always laugh because it went from, don't get on your computer to why aren't you on your computer? It's like, it was like a whole upside down world. And I really am a foodie. So I started a text message thread amongst other parents just so we would have some community, because we were all going through this thing, except we were all kind of feeling alienated and alone. And so we started taking quarantine meals and sharing recipes and just feeling like we were doing something, and inevitably that turned into people making sourdough. All of a sudden, everybody and their mama started making sourdough. And it was kind of like toilet paper. You couldn't find flour, it was all this stuff. And it gave my mind something to latch in on. At the beginning, I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't do this. I don't bake. In my mind, I could do biscuits and I could do cornbread and I could make a pie. And that was all the baking I could do. And next thing you know, all the people on the thread, they started kind of lightweight dogging me. They were like, come on, man, we're all making bread. How come you got to at least try? And I was like, okay, I'll try. And I tried. And next thing you know, it was horrible. It was really bad. It was a little flat loaf and nothing happened. And it lightweight bothered me. I was like, I don't understand why I can't get this. And so At the beginning, it was aggravating. And then the more I did it and the more I focused, the more I slowed down my mind, all the nuance and the attention to detail started to come out. And then it hooked me. All it takes is you do all this work and then you get this one beautiful loaf and it pops in the oven and you're like, I did it. And so then I kind of got hooked and I wanted to do it again and I wanted to prove that I could do it. And somewhere in there, it became like my escape. When I was doing it, everything else fell away and nothing else mattered for that period of time. And it was very healing for my mind. It gave me a tether to feel like I was doing something that was important. And yeah, it was really important during the beginning of the pandemic. It helped me through the murder of George Floyd. It was really hard on my mind. There was a period of time, I would say about a month, where I couldn't get through a day without feeling like I wanted to scream or cry or throw something through a wall. And every time that I was having those kind of horrible feelings, like I felt like the world was falling apart, I would start this process. And by the end of it, I felt like everything was right in the world. And I just realized that I was good at it. And I realized that it made me happy. And then I realized what made me happy made other people happy. And I just was like, I could really get into this. I could do this. And I started giving it away to my neighbors to have a certain amount of, to feel like I was taking care of people. I would go in and, go over and drop it on people's porches in a little brown bag with a little sign on it and text them and let them know I left them something. And then it just became every moment of my life.
Oh.
Can I ask you about the George Floyd tragedy? Because, well, you're obviously a Black man. You live in San Francisco. I'm sure that, and you're young enough, perhaps too young to remember the civil rights movement, but probably not, because it must be taught, it must be handed down from generation to generation. Why was that? Why did that happen? Why was that so profound? Because, in my career as a journalist, I did cover George Floyd. I covered Ferguson. I covered Trayvon Martin. I covered what happens in Chicago very frequently because that's where I make my home. Why did that incident affect you so profoundly, and why did you need to seek out something as innocent as baking in order to cure yourself, if you can possibly cure yourself after something like that?
Yeah, I don't equate it. Cure kind of feels like, like when you cure, you're like, it's over, I don't really ever feel cured. It leaves a scar, it's, you might break your arm and you might need an operation and, it might be healed, but every time you move your hand, you feel the little plate in there, or you see that little scar every time you take the shirt off. So it's just kind of always there. But what I did is it broke something in my mind because of shared experience, right? Like I feel like the reason that it rippled through our society or the world, if you will, was because it was something that I feel a lot of people, like when you see something that's ugly, a lot of people turn away, you cover your eyes. And that is how you shield your mind from these horrible things. There's so many things that are going on in the world that are really hard to deal with. And so I think a lot of people, if it doesn't affect them directly, they turn away. And I don't particularly blame anyone from protecting their soul and protecting their well-being and their mind. But socially, as a whole group, we were trapped in a place where it just kept being shown over and over and over. You couldn't turn away, and it affected so many people on such a like gut-wrenching level that like the whole world died a little bit, and it was about something that's so has been around for so long and been so blatant that for me, it quaked me to my roots, kind of going like, is the world ever going to see me for the beautiful person that I am inside? Right? Like, I know who I am inside. I know what I want to do. I know how I want to help people. But that's not what people see when they see me. And it kind of broke my heart to know that at any given moment, me just trying to be, if I don't step in toe or do what I'm supposed to do, that my life just could be over. And it was hard, especially because I have children and I have nephews, and it's been the same for a long time, and I just didn't know what to do with it. And so for me, I was like, I don't think I can change the world right now. I was so upset that so many people were going out to protest, and I just felt like if I go out and protest, I'm gonna blow up. And so I said, I can't fix the world. I have to be able to fix myself. I truly believe that it's not always what happens, it's how you deal with it. And so I just went inwards and focused on the one thing I can control, which was in between here. And for me, baking made it a lot easier to stay beautiful and focused and caring in here. And then I just kind of like let the world do what it's going to do. And I felt a lot of shame about that. I felt like it was a little bit of a cop out. But as I get older, I just realized, like I'm getting tired, and instead of being like hopeful, I was getting angry. And I'm like, I don't want to be bitter, and I don't want to see the world that way. And so I'm like, I need to create my own little Shangri-La, and maybe I can help people, because I feel like with my hands, I can actually feed people. I know what it feels like. When I was young, we were homeless for a period of time, and I know what it feels like to be hungry. And I thought, you know what? I can do something that makes people happy. I can do something that feeds people. And the world's going to do what it's going to do, but I'm just going to be my beautiful self and try my best to make a difference.
And I mean, and you really did. And even to the point where you called your company Rize, R-I-Z-E or Z-E, Rize Up. And so, I mean, there's just so many meanings around that. But I think, and the truth for you is that you really wanted to make a difference through something as important as and the sustenance of bread, which is kind of, you think about bread, and everybody, I don't know who doesn't like bread. And then yet you see these, okay, so then you start Rize Up, and you were baking, what is it, one loaf at a time until, like, talk about what the challenges were and the grit that it took for you to get to where you are. And it's not, I mean, it's always a challenge, but what is that thing that just keeps you going?
Well, there's that thing they say, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. So I would say that doing something you love is a very important part. And this was a newfound love for me. So I was very excited about it. But I didn't start to sell bread, right? I started to heal myself. And then once I was doing that and it was sustaining me, and I was feeling good about what I was doing, then I wanted to share that. And so it just started off giving things away. And then the more I baked and the more I documented, the more people started asking me, like, wow, that looks beautiful. Can I purchase it? And then I started to realize that there was some sort of community, because I was just doing it for myself, and people were reaching out to me. And at a time where we were really cut off from each other, it was it felt very, it's one of the first times in my entire life where I really felt seen. Like, I would do something that made me happy. I would put a little picture up, and people would respond like very positively, like, wow, this is so great. And it made me go like, wow, like I can do this. Like, it didn't really make sense to me. And so then I just wanted people that were supporting me to feel good too. So I would make an extra loaf. Then I figured out, okay, well, I make one a day for myself. Then it was like, well, if you're going to do all that work, you might as well make two. And then two turned to four. And then next thing you know, I was making, 12 a day, and people were coming and purchasing and picking them up. Then it was like, oh, I got a store that wanted to carry it. So now we're making 36 a day. And it just turned, I mean, I got up to somewhere just under 150 at my house by myself, and my wife literally like, okay, this is awesome, but can you go somewhere else? Because this is like, you're a full-fledged business, you know. Uh, she said every flat spot in our entire house had bread on it, and she was just like, "This is crazy." So, um, it it just it snuck up on me. I didn't know how to do it. I just didn't say no. So when people said, "I want a loaf," I'd be like, "Oh, okay," and then I would just figure out how to do it. And I mean, I literally work 20-hour days. People think I'm making it up, but I would work 20-hour days because I was at the house, I was with my family. You know, I would put it in, I would do a stretch and fold 30 minutes later. It's this kind of weird work where it's like you can't really do anything else, but it's not like digging a ditch all day, right? It's like you do this one thing and then you have a half hour, and then you do this other thing, you have 15 minutes. And so I got to intermingle my life through that. And I don't know, for some weird reason, it became sustainable, and it just became like my waking routine, you know? And, you know, you do that for a bunch of months in a row, and it kind of took over, like I say, every waking moment in my life. I was thinking about what I was doing tomorrow. I was thinking about what I'm doing today. I was getting things done. I was putting it in the fridge. I was waking up early. I was firing it. And it's this magical thing. Like, you know, you score it, you put it in, and every single time you're like, I hope it works. And every single time it does work, it's like, you know, it's amazing. You're like, oh my God, I did it again. It's magic, you know? So it became all encompassing, and I enjoyed it so much. I still enjoy it. And now, like, you know, now we have a big bakery, and I have a bunch of bakers and employees and delivery drivers, and all these people get to earn a living helping to make this dream happen. And we support our, you know, local small businesses, and you know, we give bread to homeless shelters and feed people. And it just, I don't know, it just feels like I found this amazing life in the midst of kind of all these tragedies, you know?
Yeah.
Give us, I mean, does the phrase, I don't know if you're a religious man or not, but I mean, bread is like the sustenance of life. You know, give us this day our daily bread. I mean, those sorts of things. I mean, you can't get more down to earth than that, I guess. And that sounds to me like that's exactly what you needed when you started doing this.
Yeah, I didn't know it. You know, like I said, I felt kind of like, how is it that no one told me that this could be so? I mean, I used to be a person that stayed up till 2 in the morning, right? Now I'm a person that wakes up at 3 in the morning, you know? And my wife, even to this day, is like, I can't believe that you spring out of bed to go bake, and you're like happy, like you're just excited, you know? And so it just shows how healing and how wonderful it is. Because, you know, before, if you woke me up at like 6, it was like raising the dead, you know? And now I'm just pop up out of bed and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a good day. Bye. You know, I'm here when people walk in. It's like, good morning. You know, I'm just excited to see them. I'm excited to try to make it happen every day. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of ups and downs to being a small business owner. But, you know, for me, um, it all feels like I get to instead of I have to, right? Like, so I'm like, I can't believe I get to do this cool thing, right? And I try to spread that around because, you know, we don't know how long we're going to be here, and you got to try to make the best of what you got. So, you know, I just try my best to be happy and surround myself with hardworking individuals who want to be happy and make beautiful things. It's like pretty cool life.
That's pretty great. And see, were you part of the World Eats Bread, the docuseries with Jake Gledenhall?
Yes, I was one of the four um,
Yeah,
bakers that they focused on in the first episode.
Yeah, tell us about. So it's the show explores culture and the role of bread, I think, around the world. What did your part? How did you play a part in that?
Well, I felt super lucky that they wanted me to be in it because you know, I had left, I'd gone through the beginning kind of stages of starting at my home. I had started to build community with some other home bakers. And then I had branched out. I think I just branched out a couple months before and moved into our first commercial kitchen. And then they reached out and they were like, "Hey, we're filming this thing. You know, you want to be in it?" And I was like, "Absolutely." I told you, I just basically said yes to like anything and everything for the first couple years. And they were like, I had no idea what it was going to be. I figured, I I figured, well, even if I was only in it for a minute, you know, it would be so cool that they wanted me in it. But then I could tell as we were filming it, they filmed a lot of stuff, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, I think I might be like a bigger part of it. Um, and then it was originally filmed, I think, for CNN Plus, which then went defuncto. And so then the wonderful people that filmed it, they had to like fight to get it back. And so there was like a year where it was like, I don't even know if it's going to come out. And then they hit me up one day and were like, okay, so we did all the negotiations. You can't tell anybody, but it's going to be on National Geographic. And my jaw just hit the ground.
Wow.
I was like, what? I'm like, oh my God, that's so crazy. So, you know, I used to look at National Geographics when I was a kid, like the tattered ones that had the, you know, the front page ripped off when I was a kid in school. And I used to always think, oh, one of these days I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to go do something. And so it feels really fortuitous to be like, now they bought this show and I'm in the first episode. And then it blew up, you know, like a lot of people started reaching out. I've had people from all over the world say that they've been inspired and just told me they appreciate me and what I'm trying to do. And you know, you try to live a good life and you try to be kind to people and you try to make a difference, but you don't always know if it's going to be received the way you put it out there. And then this thing in particular, it went out to such a big audience that it was like, it was received the way that I truly am inside. And they were so caring with my story and the way that they shared the parts and what they got and put out to the world, that I'll always feel indebted, because I just was like, it, you know, I can't actually watch it without crying.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
Just because it means so much to me, right? It's like this entire thing is like my heart on my sleeve, right? Rize Up in general is like, it means so much because it's not like, oh, there's this business that I'm going to do to make money. It's like, I just was enjoying something in life and I shared it and it became something. And so it feels like the reason it became something is because of all the things that I didn't think that the world really saw in me. And now that they see it and they value it, it's extra special.
Just before, I mean, we're starting to run low on time, but I wanted to ask you two quick questions. The first one is, where do you see Rize Up going? Where do you see it going? And the second one is, at the end of the day, no matter where it goes, are you still going to be the guy that finds his soul from needing red with a K, needing with a K? And with an N too, probably.
Yeah. I do really feel, I mean, there was a moment when I started this and I said it out loud to my wife. I said, I really feel like I could do this for the rest of my life. Right. So I've never really been a person who puts big, huge plans and expectations, because I feel like if I get too far ahead of it, it changes the inspiration, right? Because all of a sudden now it better happen the way that I thought it should happen.
Yeah.
And it makes it where I'm too focused on what should happen instead of being in the moment, enjoying what is happening. And so when you ask me what's the future, I have always been a dreamer. I've always been someone who feels like I can accomplish great things, but I know that every great thing takes a lot of wake up every day, make sure you're doing the best to your ability work. And since I enjoy that work, I feel like I can accomplish a lot. I feel like when people get up and they sit in a car for 2 hours to go to a job that they can't stand, to get in a car, to drive back home, to have a meal and go to sleep, to wake up, to do that over and over, I feel like you have to have a dream or get out plan, because the act of doing your daily life is hard on your heart. Where I have chosen, and I had the luxury to choose, although it kind of I stumbled into it. I've chosen to focus something that fulfills me and makes me happy. And so I'm like, well, if I enjoy doing this as much as I do, and I keep up a sense of quality, a sense of community, then things are going to come to me. I don't have to tell the world what it better be. I can accept what comes my way and try to make the best decisions with the information I have. And so I'm working really hard. My biggest dreams are, I want to help kids. I want to inspire Black and brown folks to be a part of this beautiful artisan bread world that I have stumbled upon. I feel like it could fit so many people that don't feel a part of it. I know when I started, I had never seen a Black baker before, right? I'd never seen anyone. I felt like it was very kind of erudite, and you needed to be a certain kind of person to bake bread. Like it just, like I said to people all the time, I knew when I was a kid growing up, I could have been a basketball player. I knew I could have been a rapper, right? Like if there's these boxes of things that I feel like the world says you could do that. And so you're like, well, if I want to do well, I guess I pick one of these things because that's what everyone says I'm good, I should be. And I want to break that. And I want to make people where they go, you know what, I enjoy being in the kitchen. I enjoy baking. I enjoy making things with my hands. And so I want to represent that. So in a big picture, I want to try to, steward people to being as joyful as I am doing this beautiful thing, of all kinds of folks. But in particular, I want to be the representation that I never really saw.
Yeah.
And then I have this pipe dream. I call it my 40 acres and a mule dream, where I want to own land and teach kids how to grow wheat so that we can be completely vertical and own and mill. And I want to just teach people a certain amount of sustainability around kind of like ownership and self-sustainability. And I feel like that if I can do those things in the time that I have left here, I will have made some steps forward for a group of people that sometimes don't always feel a part. And when I think of this, it's another thing that I'm like, I don't know how to do any of it. I've never done any of it, but I feel like maybe I can use some of the shine that we have to open some doors and make some things happen. And, of course, continue to make beautiful bread, and grow both the brand and the footprint so that we can support a bunch of people. I mean, like if you would have told me that what I love to do could like put food on the table for, 40 people, I'm like, it's insane to me.
And see, I want to ask you, so each week we ask our guests our final question, and actually yours is really written in your mission your life's mission work is believing in people. So the question that we want to ask you is, why do you, after the trauma and your experiences, why do you still believe in people?
I believe that you come here and the world just kind of beats you up. And I feel like if you're shown a little bit of love and a little bit of care, that your heart is the strongest thing. Heart tied with even remotely a remote amount of kindness can change the world, even if it's just for one person for 1 second. So I just try to believe in the best part of everyone because I know what it feels like when people give up on you. And I would never want to hurt anyone like that. I would never want to add to that. I just always want to be on this side of the line. And I think that believing in people and telling them you care about them and showing them that you care about them is kind of what the only real reason we're here, you know? And so if I get to do that in any way, I feel like I've done a good job and I can sleep well. And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes certain people and the way we are towards each other doesn't always work. But if you just or try to be a little bit kind, you'll be amazed at what's inside.
Yeah.
Z, thanks so much for sharing your stories with us today. And I mean, if you're in if you, anyone, me, Amy, if you're ever in San Francisco, where are we going to find you?
We're in between 7th and 8th Street on Howard, or in the Soma district of the city. And we're at 1160 Howard Street. And then most people find me, started as an Instagram baker. So if you're on Instagram and you look up RIZEUP bakery, the reason that I put a Z in there is because it's Rize Up, but it's from me and everyone calls me Z. So if you find Rize Up with a Z, you can follow along on my story and you can definitely find your way home to us here.
Z, thanks so much for being on Believe in People. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
So much.
What an interesting conversation. And it's funny, he's found his bread and butter in serving more puns, bad puns, helping others. And hats off to him. Hats off to him.
And you know what? Go figure that you have to slow down in order to figure out what it is that that speaks to you. I think that's really profound. Just got to take a pause. And he created something really magical that we are all enjoying. So,
and if our podcast speaks to you the way that Z just did, why not subscribe to Believe in People and join us again next week when we meet another inspiring person who's doing something inspiring for others. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.